May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. Good morning, everyone. I attended seminary starting out in Los Angeles before coming and finishing my studies here at Virginia Theological Seminary. So it was 2002. We had just gotten to LA, and a group of us from seminary went to see if we could get on the game show, The Price is Right. And we got in. And to our surprise, at one point, one of our friends, Adam, this 22-year-old from I don't know where, Midwest somewhere, gets called up to the stage to join Contestants Row. Adam was young. He didn't know how life worked or what anything cost at the time. And so here he was standing there with three adults who knew what they were doing. And if you know Contestants Row, you know that four people get to guess the price of an item, and the one who comes closest to the actual price without going over wins. And poor Adam just never caught on. He decided on the spot what his strategy was going to be. And that was that whatever the person before him guessed, Adam was going to guess just $1 over that. And it didn't take long for the other contestant after him to figure out what he was doing, so they boxed him in instantly. So someone would guess 500, Adam would go 501, and the next person would go 502. Which means that the only possible way Adam could have ever won is if the price was exactly 501. And he kept doing it. It was we were yelling from the side, trying to give him as much, advice we could, just like change the strategy, whatever. And I think by the third or the fourth row, even Bob Barker is like, Adam, are you sure that's the answer you want to go with? And Adam is like, yes, confident, as though by sticking to the same strategy, there was going to be a different result. And it never came. It was so embarrassing. We were embarrassed to walk out with him, I'll tell you that. Every now and then I think of that story. And I think, it's amazing how much of life can be like that. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Have you ever noticed that? How so much of our lives run on default settings? Like we respond the same way in conflicts. We tend to make the same decisions with our calendars. We hold the same grudges. We follow the same pattern when we need to medicate our anxiety. We've been doing the same thing for years. We stay loyal to the same fears. And then we scratch our heads as though it's the mystery of all mysteries why nothing seems to change. And it's not just us as individuals who run on default settings. It's just kind of what we do as societies, as institutions, families, governments, our politicians. We repeat the same old patterns, recycling the same arguments, offering the same answers to the same questions over and over again, and we wonder why nothing seems to change. And we say things like, isn't it such a mystery that history just kind of repeats itself? So before I go any further this morning, I want to ask you a question. Where are you stuck in a loop right now? Where is there a pattern or a cycle that you feel caught in, and you find yourself there, whether it's in the kitchen or whether it's at your work or whether it's listening to the news, and you're just like, how am I still caught in this same old cycle? At home, at work, where is it that you keep doing the same thing and you hope that someday something's going to change? Well, it's through this lens that I want to take a look at this morning's gospel reading again. The high priests in Jerusalem, they come to Jesus with a question. Well, it's not really a question. It's a trap, actually. They want to catch him off guard. They want to embarrass Jesus. And they want to discredit him with his followers. They want to throw him off his game and make him squirm with this theological grenade of a question that they knew would make anyone who taught about the resurrection sweat. You see, these priests in the temple in Jerusalem, the high priests and all of the temple priests, they belonged to this small sect of Judaism called the Sadducees. And the Sadducees did not believe in the resurrection. And I've said this a million times. I'm going to say it again. It's not funny to those of you who've heard it. To those who haven't heard it, you will remember this. But what separated the Sadducees from the Pharisees is that the Pharisees believed in resurrection. The Sadducees didn't. And that's why they were sad. You see? 8th grade, Miss Dobson, 8th grade religion class, never forgot it. So the Sadducees do not believe in the resurrection. What they believe is this life is all you have. And so you make the most of this life. There's nothing after that, which, let's be honest, is not that far-fetched for many of us and what we might believe. The problem in this case is not that they didn't believe in resurrection. Yes, they insisted on something that is kind of a mystery that none of us really know, which is funny because a lot of us actually do that. We enter into these arguments with things, massive things like what happens in the afterlife. It's a mystery. But the problem isn't that they didn't believe in the resurrection. The problem isn't even that they weaponized this debate to try to trap Jesus. The problem in this case that I want to bring before us today, the problem is that they had lost the ability. These religious leaders had lost the ability to ask a genuinely honest and curious question. The question they asked already had a predetermined answer. It's like they weren't curious anymore. They weren't searching anymore. They were on spiritual autopilot, asking the same predictable questions, expecting the same predictable answers, stuck in the same predictable patterns. And I think that we're not all that different from these Sadducees when you spend a little bit of time just thinking about what our lives are like. We get caught in the same kinds of patterns. Maybe the topic is different. Maybe you're not arguing with someone over the resurrection, but we dig our heels in on issues, not because we're curious, but because we want to prove that we are right. We're committed to what we believe. And there's really no other opinion out there that can sway us. We keep recycling the same arguments with our spouses, with our kids, with our coworkers, with people online, and we're way past being curious. We just need to show that we know better. And yet, here we are, all of us, in one way or another, desperately longing for things to change, hoping that someday something will change in our families, in our relationships, and in our country. So these Sadducees, they had their well-rehearsed, well-constructed, well-detached from any curiosity, theological trump card that they've used before, and to their great satisfaction, and now they're going to use it again on Jesus, and they're going to just watch him sweat. They're so excited. They come to Jesus with this question to trap him. And here's the question. They take this old law about marriage, and they apply a hypothetical situation to this law, and then they say, explain that in the resurrection. So this is a well-rehearsed, well-constructed question. Here it is. Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies, leaving a wife but no children, that the man shall marry the widow and raise up children for his brother. That's the law. Now, here's the hypothetical, they say. There were 7 brothers. The first married and died childless. The second and the third married her. And so in the same way, all 7 died childless. Finally, the woman also died. In the resurrection, therefore, whose wife will this woman be? For the 7 had married her. Wow. Even in the resurrection, this poor woman doesn't have a choice of who she gets to marry. Did you catch that? By husband number 3, I'd be looking at that family tree saying, I think this might be a bad batch. Maybe in the resurrection, I'm going to opt out of this subscription. Now, here's the thing, in all fairness to this law, it was actually designed to protect women economically. If you didn't have children, especially boys in those days, there was very little you could do as a widow to make ends meet. So Moses commanded that no widow was going to be uncared for. And the solution was that if a woman dies, if a husband dies, leaving the woman childless with no way of making ends meet, then the brother of the deceased person marries her and brings her into his home to care for her. That's the law. And what happened is that this practical and compassionate commandment to care for widows in the society gets manipulated. It gets taken out of context by these religious leaders because they're trying to win a point. They are trying to win the point about the resurrection, and they want, more importantly, to shut Jesus up. They've predetermined the outcome to this question, and they are counting on the conversation going the same predictable way. And it always does, doesn't it? It always goes the same way. Whether it was 2,000 years ago or it's today, a question, a comment, a nonverbal cue maybe triggers you. And before you even have a chance to hold yourself back, you're right back in that same cycle, that same argument, that same defensive posture. And I'll be honest, I don't know what's worse. What is worse, a question that is empty of curiosity or a response that's empty of introspection? What do you think? To me, both feel equally to blame for keeping us stuck. A question that's empty of curiosity and a response that is empty of introspection. It keeps us stuck in our marriages. It keeps us stuck in our family dynamics, stuck in our political ways. It keeps our societies and our culture stuck. And we are stuck. Aren't we stuck right now, friends? Did you turn the news on this morning? Did you hear anything new? We are stuck. The only thing throughout history that has ever had success getting us unstuck, the only thing, is when somebody has had the courage to either change the question or change the answer. For centuries, the question was, who has the right to own whom? It took people with courage to say, that is the wrong question. For generations, the question was, which men should vote? Until women finally said, actually, they changed the question, and the entire political landscape changed with it. For decades, the answer to segregation was, that's just the way things are. Then leaders like Rosa Parks and Dr. King said, that answer does not work anymore. For centuries, people asked, how do we treat disease? Until somebody came along and said, how do we prevent disease? And then modern medicine was born. The only thing that has ever had success at getting humans unstuck is having the courage to either change the question or to change the answer. The reason our nation today is stuck is not because Americans don't care. I know it's easy to point fingers and say it's because they don't care. And they're pointing fingers at us and they're saying it's because we don't care. That is not the reason we are stuck. We are stuck because too many of us, good, honest, faithful citizens, lack the imagination and courage to change the question or to change the response. It is not good enough. I hope you agree with me. It is not good enough, not anymore, for us to remain predictably and unquestioningly scripted along party lines, where somebody from the other party can say, I know exactly where you stand just because you said you're a Democrat. I know exactly what you think. And us, I know exactly what you think because you are in the red party. I know exactly what you think. That is way too predictable. It's like we're on just a default setting. What we need is not a script. What we need is true discernment. What we need is the courage and imagination to infuse our questions with genuine curiosity, and to infuse our answers with humility and introspection, real self-examination and introspection. What we need is a new conversation. 2 weeks ago, I was at Starbucks, and the guy in front of me placed his order, and the barista says, "Okay, what name for the order?" And the guy goes, in all seriousness, "Today, let's go with Eugene." And she looks up and she goes, "Oh yeah? What's it going to be tomorrow?" And he goes, "I haven't decided yet." And he looked totally normal. And at first I was laughing and I was like, this is the strangest thing. And then I had this epiphany. Wait, why not? I'm always telling people how to pronounce and spell Sari, like, why don't I just use a different name? Why? It's not like it's a legal document, right? Why not? Just experiment with different names. Just see what they feel like when you're going to get coffee. Imagine if the things we think we can't change are only unchangeable because we've never thought to question them. Let me just say that one more time. Imagine if the things we thought we can't change are only unchangeable because we've never thought to question them. Imagine if we could change the questions we've been asking. Imagine if there are answers out there, better ones, holier ones, that are waiting for us to pause the rhetoric just long enough to see. What we need is a new conversation. No, let me say that differently. It is time for a new conversation and someone to start it. Amen.